Would it be terrible if I asked you to come closer? Oh, the mute. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so why am I asking you to come closer? It's because sometimes when you come close, it's easier to experience the message. And I understand this is a class that's called the message class. And so, yeah, come close. I mean, you could even come ccloser. You could even like come so close that we're all sitting here together. It's not bad here on the floor. You could get a pillow and get cozy, lay around. Nice. Super nice. Yeah, get her a cushion so she can get comfy here. You can even lean right here. Yeah. So first, maybe we should all just greet each other. I know most of you know each other, but you may not know everyone, and you may not know anyone. And so, just in case, if you could take a moment to remember that you are about to glance into the universe, that you are going to now, right now, experience something that is more profound than any thought you can ever have. That you are going to make a connection with something that has been waiting for you to connect for a very long time. Now you could turn towards someone and in a way that's authentic to you, just take a moment to greet them. Yeah, so here we are, expressing, witnessing, participating in what Paramurshid Inayat Khan called the message. I want to tell you about an experience I just had. Just this past weekend, I was invited to go to Naples. And I said, well, I can't go to Naples unless you make your event in Naples just before I go to Sarasota. And so I thought when I got this phone call and I said this, that was it for Naples. But instead, this wonderful woman, Martha, called me back and said, we changed it. We're all meeting. The weekend you can come. Come to Naples. So I did. I flew in here early, met my friend, my partner in crime, Rahima. We got in the car and we drove to Naples to meet these two indigenous grandmothers, these wonderful women, and 3 other people who are on a council of grandmothers. And what they called grandmothers is anyone who has ever placed a child up to their shoulder and patted their back. So one of these women, who is an Ojibwe medicine keeper and a senior grandmother in her tradition, and very beautiful woman, Mary, she said that her 3-year-old great-grandchild picked up a baby the other day and placed this baby against her shoulder and patted her back, and that she's now admitted to the Council of Grandmothers at the age of 3. And I thought, isn't that beautiful? You know, any one of us has within us that nurturing aspect. The Maori people say that everyone has within them the loving mother, the kind father, and the innocent child. And so Mary was honoring the loving mother aspect that's in all of us. Anyway, I had never met these people before. I had no idea why I was going. I kept thinking to myself, what am I doing? I have absolutely no time. They're going to want me to do something. How will I have any way to do it. But then, I don't know, somehow I ended up in Naples with these fabulous people. And the people that came to be with us, every one of them in their own right, were amazing, absolutely amazing. And I don't say that lightly. Yes, so Mary, someone asked Mary to speak about herself, and she said, I can't speak about myself because I'm holding a post at this stage in my life and in my work. I'm holding the post of the we. We, W-E. I'm holding the post of the we, and my role is to speak for the we. So I sat there thinking, isn't this wonderful? You know, our teacher, our Murshid, Pir Murshid Inayat Khan, he came to the West from India carrying this charge that his teacher gave him to bring the message to the Western world. And now I'm meeting this woman who knows, is holding that very same message that she was charged from her tradition to hold in the Western world. The Sufis, we talk about the message that we are all part of the one unity. The message that we are all part of the divine, of God, of the wholeness that is life and beyond life. And the Ojibwe, they say, we are part of the we. That one comes to a place in life that it's our role to hold the we. My Maori friends in New Zealand, they say that everyone is part of the waka. The waka is the canoe that has brought everyone into life and through life. And everyone is part of the waka, and no one is left behind. And I once witnessed a conversation there where someone was talking about someone who was very disturbing and made all kinds of mistakes and actually did some pretty horrible things. And they said, well, we'll have to deal with him, but he has a place in the waka. No one is left behind. So this is a class about the message, that message of unity. And I would like to bring that up for all of us to hold and say, how do each of us bring this message into our life? What do each one of us do? How do each one of us think? What are the feelings that you feel that participate in this message? Your hopes, your dreams. This morning I was visiting some friends in Tampa. I've traveled a lot in the last few days. I've started in Sarasota, went to Naples, then to Bonita Springs, to a fabulous place called Shangri-La, by the way. You have to go there. It's just been purchased by some Germans who are opening it. It's been closed for, I guess, almost a decade, and they're going to make it a healing center. By the way, I told them about the center here, so I feel like I'm playing Cupid to get these two groups together. And so we went to Shangri-La and did this wonderful ceremony where it was like a house blessing of the land, because it hadn't been open for a long time. And when we got there, there was this Buddha. This is a physical thing. There was this Buddha that was under a beautifully huge tree. If you go there, you'll walk out the back door of this building that was built in the early part of the 1900s that's absolutely beautiful. And there is this big Buddha sitting under a tree, a huge tree, that was tipped over, was like leaning over. And at the end of this ceremony, this blessing, that was very similar to the blessing of a home in the universal worship that we all participated in, each in our own way. The Buddha had somehow righted itself. It was really quite wonderful. So I was there, and then in Naples, and then I went up to Tampa, to Tarpon Springs, to visit two friends, one of whom is very interested in Tai Chi. And I was watching his teacher do Tai Chi on the video. And once again, here was someone who was walking his own path, who was moving on his own path, and yet every move he made was an expression, is an expression of movement through the we, through the awakened message, through life with consciousness. And he was saying to me, well, I'm doing something new. I'm not doing Sufism. I'm doing something new. And then he described the message absolutely perfectly. And I sat there thinking, isn't that wonderful that newness can show itself in so many ways, and yet it's still an expression of this wholeness that we all share. In the teachings of Pure Murshid Anaya Khan, he says that everyone who lives from that awakened place, from that place that is recognizing the unity in the whole creation, is a Sufi, whether they've ever heard the word or not. So these last few days have been an expression of that for me. And so when I got the text saying, oh, would you like to do a message class? I thought, well, we can just have a chat about what it's like for each of us to live in this experience. If you showed up here tonight, you have that feeling in you of our interconnectedness. And in some unique way, it's expressing itself in you, as you. And I would like to encourage you to keep going and trust the path that you're on, because it is your path. It's not that you are on the path and actually there's another path that's your path. This is it. This moment is part of it. This experience that's in this room, as we pay attention, that includes a lightness in the gut, a warmth in the heart, light around us, light sparkling in the eyes. This is part of the path we share. On the way here, I was thinking about the way that the message expresses itself in different faiths. And I started thinking about the Jewish faith and how even the word Israel is spelt is real. And if we were to take that a step further and wonder about the Shema Israel, hear all that is real. The Lord our God, the Lord is one. Or the words of Jesus where he said, treat your brother as yourself. Maybe he wasn't being philosophical. Maybe he was just telling you the way it is. And I think if we go to all the prophets, we will find the very same message. The very same message expressed by everyone. I hear from people more than seldom a kind of despair about the state of the world. And so I want to share something with you from the perspective of healing and transformation. Are you ready? I want to share with you that your thoughts can be a conversation with life. That when you find your thoughts running in a way that is wondering about the future, witnessing the difficulty, emphasizing that which is not going as well as it could, that you can respond to that thought with another thought. I'm talking about the material that is behind the surface of life, which is the realm of thought, and saying that you can have an effect on life by choosing what to think. So how would that go? Okay, before the how would that go, mark this moment in case I forget what I was up to. I just want to say to you that science has actually caught up to what I'm telling you, just in case you're feeling doubtful. There has been research done now on the brain. I'm talking about the physical matter of the brain. And it turns out when you change what you're thinking, the grooves in your brain change. You can actually change the shape, the grooves of your brain by changing your thought. This is proof that thought can change matter. Or at least it's good enough for me. And maybe you'll try it and see if it's good enough for you too. So how would this work? You hear about something that is happening in the world that distresses you. Let's come up with something. What? Work. Okay. Work's distressing you. You're in a job. You really don't like it. You're thinking to yourself, I really don't like my job. You can think to yourself, something new is coming my way. Something that will make this job better. Or you can think, this is a first step towards a new job. I wonder how it will show itself to me. And then when the phone rings, you wonder, oh, is that my new job? A letter comes in the mail, I wonder if that's my new job. You talk to a friend, I'm ready to get something new, another job. Have you heard of something? No, I'm saying you can say that to your friend, although maybe you've heard of something. And you just hold that thought steadily and see what happens. Within 30 days, I think something will happen. Okay, what else?
How about a world situation where there's,
Give us an example.
well, in Africa, the people that are starving and being terrorized and so forth, intertribal things.
Yep. Okay, so that's big. With the big things, it's not going to take 30 days. And you may never know the effect that your thoughts have had. And you can still apply this. So, for example, you hear about children starving. Pick one. Or war. Well, you can pick two. And you think to yourself, it's time for this to change. It's time for this to change. Somehow, we've come to a place, we, the wholeness, here on earth, where there can be an emergence of a new way of treating each other, where the children are fed and they have people to parent them. And because, people, there's an AIDS epidemic, there's many families that are, the head of the family is 12 or 10. It's a very sad situation. And even 10 years ago, there wasn't the medicine that there is now. There aren't the schools that there are now. Just this last weekend, I have met 2 people who have been bringing education into Tanzania. Why would I run into 2 people who are doing this? So I'm saying I ran into it so I can say to you, there is change happening. And maybe you and I will expect more change. So rather than adding thought, which is a kind of power, to the difficulty that is there, you honor the difficulty, you don't ignore it, you don't deny it, and you notice the path to change. Somehow it will change. And then you could even have a little chat with the source of everything. Some people call that God. You may call it the universe, you may call it source or love or whatever you do. You might turn your attention to that and say, it's time. We really need more education and food and clothing and shelter, and we need an influx of peacefulness in Africa. And I'm voting for that. I'm saying I'm adding it to my prayers, and I'm going to expect that something will happen. Then, just like when it's a personal thing, you start wondering when the phone rings if it's for you, or you start wondering when the letter comes, is this the answer? Or you actually talk to people and address it in the same way you ask yourself, well, how can I affect this change in Africa? And maybe you'll hear about somebody who's starting a school and you'll say, I can't go, but I'll give you $50. And you become the first answer to your prayer. Or you look in the newspaper and you say to yourself, gosh, I wonder if there's something really wonderful that's happened in Africa. I think I'll look through the news and see what's happening there. So in this way, you add your expectation, the power of your thought, the power of your attitude, of your hope in that direction. You place it in that direction. We think our thoughts are personal, and they are personal in that they happen within us, and we are the ones that we hope are in charge of them rather than them in charge of us, and yet we don't make use of them. We make use of our words. We make use of our body. We make use of our income. We make use of the stuff that we have in our life. And yet the power of our thought, the power of our expectation, the power of our inner feeling, we tend to just let that be kind of like a puddle of mush. So in this way, by it's a new moment, light. In this way, we participate in the creation of reality by paying attention, by consciously choosing where we will lend our energy, what thoughts we will put our energy into, how we will help co-create the actualization of this message that we are all part of the same one reality, that we are all interconnected, that in the depth of our heart we share one heart. That our souls are an expression of one whole. That the essence of our being is one. In this way, we begin to actualize this. And isn't this the movement of our time? This awakening that Piramurshid Inayat Khan talked about at the beginning of the 1900s has become a wave that is spreading throughout reality. And there are people all over the world sharing in this. There are people who are participating, whether they call it the we, or that we're all in the waka together. Whether they sing about it through a prayer in Hebrew or in Latin or in Sanskrit, in Chinese, in Japanese, in Swahili. It's the same message. And every time you consciously participate in that, you are joining hands with people all over who are doing the same thing today. There really is an awakening that's happening. And just like every other birth, it is a little messy. And it is a birth. And just like every other birth, there's the lightness and the darkness. Isn't it interesting that even as we're having this class, there's light and then there's not light and there's flickering and then there's darkness. This is just the way it is. Birth is like this. I'm encouraging you to respond to the need of today. How am I doing? Yeah, so let's talk a little bit. What are your thoughts about this? Yes.
More of a question. Because I get some confusion and lose clarity on two dynamics that at least at the surface appear in opposition and yet I think are both valid. One being we'll call proaction in thought, intent, affirmations, many things, sort of along the line you've been talking. But the other one is surrender. And I think surrender has a place too, at least least that's my sense. I've experienced it. And that it leads me to deeper understanding, deeper connection, sometimes greater love. And knowing when surrender is called for and when proaction is called for is not always clear to me.
Huh. Well, I think that that's not always clear to everyone, that there are points that we need to all stop and wait until we have a sense of clarity. And I think that you're just really beautifully turning our attention to that note of balance. That in the inner life, on the one hand, we're active through our thought and our attitudes and our expectations, through our hopes, through our dreams. And then on the other hand, we're receptive through that inner guidance, that waiting for guidance, that waiting for direction. When we listen to our intuition, or follow our inspiration, or that moment of revelation, I didn't know and now I do. All of that is an expression of the divine, of our relationship with the divine within us. So we were just speaking about our relationship with the divine all around us, and that we can use action, but we can also use thought and attitude and feeling in our relationship with the divine all around us. And now I hear you bringing our attention to our relationship with the divine within. That time that you wait and then you know. Or you have a dream, and in the dream you're like my experience. I didn't want to join these people in Naples. I didn't want one more thing to do, and then I went to sleep and I dreamt about them, and I thought, oh, okay, I can't forget. Then I get an email and I think, no, I don't want to do it. But then the phone rings and they say, oh, well, we'll change everything for you. And finally, I had to just say, my dreams are telling me, my feeling is telling me, I have no idea why I'm doing this. And yet, I have to say yes.
So you're really suggesting patience.
It's ironic that I would suggest patience, because anyone that knows me knows that that is one of my growing edges. Nonetheless, yes, there's a place for patience. Yes, indeed, there is. Yeah, and it goes well, patience. And when you're not patient, that goes okay too, until you realize that you're not going to get your answer until you let go and let God. Yeah, I guess what I'm doing is encouraging everyone to not have a philosophy that they call the inner life, but to actually have an inner life where you're in dialogue with the divine, where you're in relationship with the divine, where you honor that when we say, use your common sense, that isn't that interesting that we all know what we're talking about? And that we share it and we take it for granted. What is your common sense? Where'd that come from? The most pragmatic people will tell you, use your common sense about that. So what I'm reminding us is that all of these things, our intuition, those messages we get in dream, our common sense, the inspiration that you had, you didn't have it and then you did. That revelation, I didn't see it and now I do. All of that is our relationship with the divine. It's not just those inner prayers. It's the answers. We have this beautiful fantasy about the answer to our prayers. Actually, I do know a couple people that the answer to their prayers come with stars and lights and music, but they don't come that way with me. It's just another thought that I didn't have and then I did. Do you know what I'm saying? Am I answering your question? Good to know. Okay, what else?
Well, just listening to you speak, I mean, for me, this is such a major time of really deepening the trust. That surrender comes because I do have that relationship, and you know, you talk about the growing edge or being at the edge of ourselves, because it feels like to me so much is moving in ways that I can't comprehend, yet I know that what is happening is a deepening and a strengthening of my relationship with the best way I can say it in the moment is the whole, with that sense of wholeness. And as I come to know deeper within myself what that actually feels like, you know, things start evolving in ways I can't imagine. And that's the edge of the delight, where it moves from, so the surrender, and listening like the surrender for me is when I let go into that field of movement, you know, of call it the divine or call it the field. When you're talking about science, you know, it's like quantum science, there, you know, it's all coming together now, right? Where quantum science is speaking of the field, you know, what's the field, but call it the source of everything or whatever you like. But to me, it's like tapping, it's like you're tapping into something that holds a frequency that we can really start to trust, and that the journey right now feels like it's learning to trust that frequency of love as your essence, full embodiment.
Yeah. That we're learning to trust that frequency of love as our essence. Does anyone else feel that? Yeah. So you speak for us. That we're learning. A few years ago, I went to this conference in Kansas and met a physicist who has been studying something that he calls the plenum. I don't know how he's progressed on that. But he said, well, when I talk about the plenum, I'm talking about that which can't be seen by the eyes and isn't really detectable, and yet is so much energy under the surface of the universe that one cubic centimeter could power a whole city. And he said, we know it's there. And we're wondering how to have better access to it. Anybody who's on a spiritual path and is doing spiritual practice is accessing that plenum all the time. The Sufis call it Nur, the unseen light, the light that fills the universe. This is how he described it. He said it's a light that's so bright that no one can see it. And I just sat there thinking, yep. It's just a light that's so bright no one can see it, and it's all pervasive, and it's an enormous power. And then in these tools that Murshid, that Pure Murshid Inayat Khan has given us, he is giving us access to what this physicist calls the plenum. The plenum. Yes, he may have changed the name by now, but I thought that was a great name. And in this access, we are learning how to do what we were put here to do, which is to serve the creation. So we're talking about how one can use thought, the power of thought, to serve the creation. And we have talked about how to use the power of the heart to serve the creation. And now we're reminded about patience and how the creation comes not just to support us, not just on the outside, but also from within. What else?
Not so long ago, was with a sage, a very wise man, and he happened to come to Sarasota, which was way out of his really out of his place here. But he gave a lecture and a talk, a number of talks. And what delighted me so were the deep questions within me, was like fireworks were going off inside me. But what I truly loved about him was that he was asked a question, and in his rough English, he said to the fact that he's on thin ice with this question because he has no idea what he's talking about. And if I could come to a question inside me that searches for me, it would be like having my feet on earth and having a touch of heaven at the same moment. When I do my prayers in the morning, because I feel it connects directly to what I'm hearing, one part, I'm going to letting it settle in me so I can speak it as it is alive in me. That there's a point in the prayer that it says, and in time to come, the soul that is within me will be released. And in time to come, it will return. And it's this sliver of time that I'm living. It creates a field of awe to be able to serve something, to be able to serve the God that's within me and around me and above me and in this whole place. And the joy of using the gifts that I've been given. And I don't have to know my way. I don't think it's my job. I don't think that's part of the magic of life. It's letting it unfold. When I'm in between the sliver, I have this deep yearning to be who I can be.
Thank you for giving us this moment to be in the preciousness of life. You remind me of something that I was once told, that we come into life and so many of us, as soon as we get here, it's like we made a commitment and we look around and we say, oh, no, just take me back. I don't like it here. This isn't what I signed on for. You must have put me in the wrong place. I hope I'm covering everybody's issue. And you have an opportunity to be in that complaining mode for the entire time that you breathe, the entire time that you're alive. And then what will happen if, as you're passing on, you realize and your last thought is, oops, I missed it. So I so appreciate what you just said, because you're reminding us that life is an amazing gift and opportunity. And yes, being separate from the whole involves pain. And there's more. that pain could even be a kind of energy that propels us through. I'm not suggesting anybody look for more pain. I am saying that the challenges in life carry a certain kind of energy that can move you forward. And maybe we don't need to know every moment what's going on. I appreciate these times that we sit together, and out of the pool of our resourcefulness, we get these reminders that we can all take with us of the power of our relation with the world outside of us, the power of our relation with the world inside, and of patience, the power of the heart and that feeling that moves us from place to place, and the preciousness of every breath, even when we don't know what's coming now. We're talking about the message. This message that is everywhere at this time, that is being spoken rather than in the secret, dark, traditional places of the highest teachings, that is being spoken out in the midst of life, of the awakening of humanity to the divinity within, without, in the moment, and beyond. So thank you for bringing our attention to that kind of listening where the texture of life actually changes, where the feeling of the air is different, where the quality of sound is different, where there's a kind of stillness. Time shifts everything. We're identifying aspects of this message and the gifts of it. We're identifying aspects of this awakening. I wonder if there's anything else that we need to say.
So, one topic on a lot of hearts and minds now is the state of the planet, and you know, the threat of global warming and mass extinctions, and you know, you read the science of it, and it doesn't sound very encouraging. And so there's, I know for me there's some balance, and it's always a shifting balance. It's not like a, you know, okay, I got it now, and now I can just maintain. You know, really wanting to understand and learn, and you know, on sort of that level, and yet I feel like it's a core responsibility of mine to be optimistic, to maintain hope, and to seed hope in the world. And so, does
Yes.
that trigger anything for you?
Yeah.
That balance.
Yeah. Well, Swami Satchidananda used to say, trust in God and lock your car. Of course, we all lived in New York City at the time. This was when I was 19 years old, and I used to go to this, what was it, the Unitarian Church, where he taught every Friday night. So in order to get there, you had to go through some, Manhattan. And everyone parked their car, those that were driving, and he would say, trust in God and lock your car. So on the one hand, we want to trust that something is happening and keep trusting. What do we have to lose to use the power of our faith, to really have faith that somehow we are moving through this time? And now this might disappoint you, I'm not going to tell you that you shouldn't do anything unless you can change the state of the wars in Africa. I am going to say, affect your sphere of influence. You're worried about ecology? Do you recycle? Do you watch what fertilizer you use on your ground? Do you pick up that piece of paper on the street and put it in the trash can? Do you make sure that your car's exhaust is good? Get the muffler early. You're praying for peace? Be peaceful. If there's an argument, err on the side of kindness. Have good boundaries and learn the many wonderful and plentiful ways to say no without huge animation, giving respect for the other person's point of view. I'm talking about changing the way things are going. Affect your sphere of influence. If you have a little bit extra, then give to those who actually can fly over there, and make sure that those that are starving are getting food, rather than more money going into some government's coffers. Every once in a while, go to a homeless shelter and help feed the homeless. We like to think that if we can't do huge things, then we can just worry and be miserable. And that is a huge feeling. And indeed, it's true. And it feeds the hugeness of the difficulty. Better to look around you and say, I've been given this sphere of influence, and I will make a change here. You know, I'm involved in the Sufi healing order, and I encourage those of you who are healing conductors or regularly pray for the state of the world, that you hold the world in your heart and put your attention on the places that need a little bit of love, and access that divine love by asking and opening and trusting that it's going where your attention is. What is the gift we have? We can see the details. The angels don't see the details this way. Those that are disembodied do not see the details this way. We have the gift of perception. Let's use it wisely. And rather than add more chaos to a chaotic time, add love. Add a feeling of harmony. Look for the beauty. I'm not suggesting you not notice the difficulty. Notice with wisdom. What is the difference between a child's mind and the wise person's mind? The child will get upset and cry, and then that's it. They walk away, but they aren't able to make a change. The wise person will be able to notice just with that innocence of the child, will feel the pain, will allow it to exist, and will take a step to solve the situation, to add a new way. So this was a class on the message. And I'm encouraging all of us to be an active participation to the awakening of humanity, to the divinity that resides in all. All of us, all throughout the world, all of life and beyond. May we meet in many ways.